It was the summer of 2021 when I decided to take a solo trip to Cleveland, Ohio. I'm not usually the haunted adventure type, but a buddy of mine had mentioned this old amusement park on the outskirts of the city, Maplewood Park. It shut down in the late 90s after some mysterious accidents, and it had been abandoned ever since. I wasn't sure why, but something about deserted, decaying places has always drawn me in. I drove down the cracked asphalt road lined with overgrown weeds and broken fences. The park loomed in the distance, skeletal rides silhouetted against the fading sun. I parked my car near the old entrance, which was blocked by a rusty gate that barely hung on its hinges. The air smelled like rust, wet grass, and a hint of something I couldn't place. I pushed the gate open and stepped inside. The ground was littered with broken glass and fallen signs. I could hear the wind whistling through the empty roller coaster tracks, making this low, groaning sound like it was alive. I started filming with my phone, narrating to my imaginary audience because, well, I wanted to see if I could catch anything weird. I walked past the old ticket booths and toward the Ferris wheel. Its cars were dangling in weird angles, swaying slightly even though there was no breeze. That's when I first heard it, a faint, almost giggling sound. I froze, probably just the wind. I muttered under my breath, but my chest was tightening. I scanned the area, shining my flashlight around the empty grounds. Nothing, just shadows stretching long and thin. I decided to keep moving. The old funhouse was next, its paint peeling and doors hanging crooked. As I stepped inside, the smell hit me first. Rotting wood, mold, and something metallic. My flashlight flickered, and I swear I heard the soft creak of footsteps, slow and deliberate. My rational mind screamed that I was alone, but my gut told me otherwise. Halfway through the maze of mirrors, I saw it, a reflection that didn't match my movements, a shadowy figure standing just behind me. But when I spun around, there was nothing. My heart slammed in my chest, and my hands shook so badly I almost dropped my phone. The giggling sound came again, louder this time, echoing through the narrow hallway. I bolted. No, I ran like I've never run before in my life, through the maze, out into the open, and straight toward the Ferris wheel. I wanted to leave, but my curiosity was still gnawing at me. I looked back for a second, and that's when I saw it clearly. A small girl, maybe 7 or 8, in a tattered white dress, standing under the Ferris wheel, her head tilted weirdly to the side and her eyes, well, I didn't get a good look, but I'll never forget the way she stared at me. "Hey, you shouldn't be here," she whispered, almost playful, almost sinister. My blood ran cold. I blinked, and she was gone. I didn't stay to investigate. I ran back to my car, fumbling with the keys like a man possessed. The second I locked the doors, I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. The Ferris wheel car closest to the ground was slowly turning, like something or someone had just jumped in. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about that little girl, the giggling, and the Ferris wheel moving on its own. I tried rationalizing it, maybe the wind, maybe my imagination, but part of me knew better. Maplewood Park had a history. Several children had disappeared there decades ago, and their bodies were never found. That's not something I wanted to discover the hard way. The next day, I went back during daylight to take photos, thinking maybe the sun would make it less scary. Everything looked normal. Empty rides, rust, decay, no shadows, no giggling. But when I reviewed the photos, I noticed something chilling in almost every shot. The Ferris wheel had at least one car swinging unnaturally, and in one blurry photo, I could sworn I saw a small figure staring right at me. I've never gone back. I won't. And every time I drive past that old exit off the highway, I feel like something is watching from behind the weeds and broken fences, waiting for the next fool to wander in. It all started when I was driving up to Vermont to visit a friend. It was late October, and the roads were covered in a thin layer of fog that made everything look like a scene from some horror movie. My friend had a last-minute work trip, so I needed a place to crash for a night. I found this hotel online, the Pinewood Lodge, a small, old building tucked off Route 100, surrounded by thick forests. Reviews were decent, but weirdly vague, almost like people didn't want to say too much. When I arrived, the sun was just setting, and the fog had gotten thicker, curling around the trees like fingers. The parking lot was mostly empty. I stepped out, stretched, and walked toward the lobby. The building looked tired. The wooden siding was peeling, the paint faded, and the front porch creaked under my weight. I tried to shake off the feeling that someone or something was watching. Inside, the lobby smelled like dust and old wood. The woman at the desk barely glanced up. "Room 17, she said, sliding a key across. Her tone was monotone, almost rehearsed. I noticed the lobby clock ticking loudly, the kind of sound that echoes inside silence and makes you hyper-aware of every tiny noise. I walked down the long hallway, my footsteps echoing, passing rooms with doors slightly ajar. A cold draft blew down the hall. Even though the heat was on full blast, my stomach tightened. I reached my room, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. It looked normal at first. Bed, desk, small bathroom. But there was a faint smell, like something had died and been hidden somewhere nearby. After showering and sitting on the bed for a few minutes, I heard it, a low creak outside my door. At first, I thought it was the floorboards settling, but then it came again, slower this time, like someone was walking very carefully, testing the floor. I froze. My heart was pounding. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe a guest, maybe the wind, but deep down I knew I was alone. My phone had no signal, which didn't help. I got up slowly and peeked through the peephole. Nothing, just the dimly lit hallway. I turned around and saw something move in the corner of the room. A shadow, just a quick flicker, gone as soon as I blinked. My body went cold. I grabbed the nearest object, a lamp, and held it like a weapon. The creaking came again, but now it sounded like it was closer. Inside my room, I backed up toward the door slowly. That's when I noticed a piece of paper sticking out from under the bed. My hands shook as I picked it up. The handwriting was jagged, like someone had written it in a panic. "I've been waiting for you. Don't look behind you." I swallowed hard. My rational side screamed prank, but everything in me knew it wasn't. I could feel it, the presence, watching, waiting. Minutes passed. Silence. I tried to breathe, tried to calm my racing mind, but then I heard soft tapping against the bathroom door. Tap, tap, the kind of sound that makes your blood run cold. I told myself not to look, but I had to see. I edged toward the bathroom, slowly turning the doorknob. It was locked from the inside. It made no sense. There was no way anyone else had a key, at least according to the front desk. My heart was hammering. Then, the tapping stopped. Silence. I held my breath. That's when I heard it, whispering, barely audible, like someone was right next to my ear. But there was no one there. "Don't leave. Stay." I bolted to the window. It was locked tight. Outside, the fog had gotten thicker, swallowing the forest and gray. I considered breaking the glass, but I didn't have anything to do it with, and I was terrified of making noise. I spent the next hour sitting on the bed, eyes darting to every corner, waiting for something, anything. Every time I closed my eyes, I could feel it moving, breathing, watching. I felt like I could almost see a shape in the darkness. Something tall, shadowy, featureless. Finally, I heard footsteps in the hallway, not the kind that echoes on the floorboards. Quiet, careful, almost patient. They stopped outside my door. My phone was across the room, and I was too scared to grab it. Then, a soft knock. Not 3 times, just one. Slow. I couldn't do it. I couldn't open the door. My mind screamed run, but my body refused. Then the whispering again. "It's your turn now." I don't know how long I stayed frozen, but eventually the sun started to rise. Light leaked through the curtains. I finally forced myself to look around. Nothing. No shadow. No whisper. Just an empty room, as if nothing had ever happened. I ran down to the lobby, but the woman at the desk was gone, replaced by a man I'd never seen. I asked about the previous night, about the noises, the whispering, anything. He looked at me strangely and said, "You must have imagined it. No one's been here but you last night. The lodge has been empty for weeks." I left immediately. On the drive back, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was following me. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror. Nothing. But at every stoplight, I felt eyes on me. To this day, I can't explain what happened at Pinewood Lodge. I don't know if it was haunted, if someone had been hiding in my room, or if I just lost it for a night. All I know is that when I close my eyes, I still hear the whispering, "Don't leave. Stay." Even now, I check the hotel online from time to time. It's empty, closed for maintenance, but something tells me it's never really empty, and I'm not going back to find out. I didn't plan to go to Maine that summer. Honestly, it was a last-minute decision after my buddy bailed on our usual camping trip in New Hampshire. I wanted to get away, clear my head, and honestly, avoid my parents for a couple of days. So, I started scrolling online for cheap places to crash. That's when I found it. Camp Timberfall. Or at least that's what the faded sign said. It wasn't a camp in operation anymore. The website was old, like it hadn't been updated since 2005. Reviews were sparse and kind of creepy, filled with weird noises, strange shadows, and don't go after dark warnings. Naturally, that was exactly what made me want to go. Who wouldn't be curious? I arrived late afternoon. The sun was already low, throwing long shadows across the forest road leading to the camp. The place was massive. Old cabins, a decaying mess hall, a small lake that had probably been used for swimming decades ago. The gates were broken, swinging slightly in the wind. I parked my car and stepped out, trying to ignore the rustling of leaves that sounded suspiciously like footsteps. house. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Wet wood, mold, and something off, like stale air that had been trapped for years. I walked toward the main cabin to check in. There was a small sign that said office, but it looked abandoned. I called out. No response. The place felt dead. Too quiet, but something in me whispered to keep going. After poking around, I found a small building that looked like the check-in office. I pushed open the door. It creaked so loud I almost jumped. Inside, there was a desk with a dusty ledger, a small bell, and an old coffee machine that hadn't worked in years. I flipped through the ledger out of curiosity. Names, dates, notes, nothing recent. But on one page, in the corner, was a single message, scrawled in a shaky hand. "Don't stay in cabin 7. I froze for a second, the hairs on my arm standing up. Cabin 7 wasn't far from where I parked. I laughed to myself, trying to brush it off. Probably some dumb joke left by a previous visitor. But curiosity, stupidly enough, got the better of me. I decided to check it out before choosing where to set up my sleeping bag for the night. Cabin 7 was at the far end of the camp, near the woods. The path leading to it was overgrown with weeds, and every step I took made a crunching noise on the fallen leaves. When I reached it, I noticed the door was slightly ajar. My heart jumped. Perfect, I muttered sarcastically. Nobody's home. I stepped inside. Dust hung in the air like smoke, and the floorboards groaned under my weight. The cabin smelled worse than the office. Something rotten. Maybe old food left behind. Maybe. I didn't want to think about it. I looked around. A bunk bed, a small table, a cracked window. Nothing that screamed danger. Then I heard it. A soft thump. Like someone dropped something. Way at the back of the cabin. My stomach flipped. "Hello?" I called out, half joking, half terrified. Silence. Then another thump, closer this time. I froze. The hairs on my neck were standing straight up. I slowly moved toward the back of the cabin, trying not to make a sound. And I saw it. A small wooden box sitting in the corner, shaking slightly. Not rocking, not moving from the floor, but trembling, like someone's hands were on it. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I took a cautious step closer. Before I could reach it, the box slammed open on its own. A cloud of dust and leaves erupted from inside. My eyes watered, and I stumbled back. Nothing inside, just dust. Old scraps of paper and a photograph. A single photo of a group of kids standing in front of the cabin, smiling. But one thing was wrong. One child in the back row was missing a face. Just a blank, pale blur where the face should have been. I dropped the photo and bolted out of the cabin. My adrenaline spiked. The forest around me seemed alive now, rustling, whispering, like something was moving with me. I didn't stop until I reached my car. I thought about leaving immediately, but something kept me there. Call it stupidity, call it curiosity. I didn't leave. Night fell fast. The fog rolled in off the lake, curling around the trees like fingers again. I had decided to stay in a small cabin nearby. Not cabin 7, cabin 3. Safer, I thought. I set up my sleeping bag and tried to ignore the noises. But then I heard it, the faint sound of children laughing. Not outside, but inside the walls. A giggle here, a whisper there. I told myself it was the wind, just the wind. But the laughs turned into footsteps, slow and deliberate, pacing the floor above me. Cabin 3 had an upstairs loft I hadn't seen in daylight. My pulse raced. I didn't want to look, but I had to. I slowly climbed the narrow stairs. My flashlight flickered. At the top, the loft was empty, but in the corner, I saw something move. A shadow. Taller than a kid, shorter than an adult. It darted behind a post, then disappeared. My hands shook, and I swear I heard a voice whisper, "Why are you here?" I ran back downstairs, locked the door, and tried to stay calm. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see those blank faces in the photographs from cabin 7, smiling at me in a way that made my stomach churn. The next morning, I decided to leave. But before I could get to my car, I heard someone, or something, calling my name. Soft, slow, dragging. From behind cabin 7, I didn't turn around. I didn't stop running. I jumped in the car, started the engine, and drove without looking back. Weeks later, I looked up Camp Timberfall online. The website was gone. Even Google Maps didn't show the cabins anymore. Just an empty forest where I remembered the road. I still wonder what I saw that night. Was it ghosts of children who had died there? Some sort of entity? Or maybe I just lost it. But I don't think I did. Because sometimes, when I'm home alone, I hear it. The faint sound of children laughing, soft footsteps on wooden floors, and a whisper that calls my name. I don't go back to Maine anymore, and I never ever talk about that summer camp unless I'm ready to scare the hell out of someone. Because I know it's still out there, and I know it remembers me.